Well, good morning, everyone. Today we're just gonna change it up a little bit. I thought we've been doing so much about listings, CMAs, catching our listing clients because it's listing season. I thought we'd broach a topic that maybe not a lot of us know a lot about, or maybe we're nervous. So anytime you guys come to me with anything, I'm gonna encourage you to just always do it. So please never say to your client, oh, I don't do commercial, or I don't know anything about listing businesses, or I'm not sure about commercial property, because I really want you guys to try it. It's not that difficult. The only scary part about it is that every deal is different. Every single deal is different. It's not like residential where most of the time we're dealing with the same thing every day, right, with our offers. So I just wanted to sort of go over it a little bit with you guys so you have the confidence to try to do something and dabble in a little commercial stuff, right? So there's a million different things you can do for commercial. Today, I was going to focus on the sale of a business, all right? So I'll just share my screen here now and we'll get started. All right, so we know selling a business requires a really different approach to valuation. It's not as easy as residential where you're just looking at the recent solds. You can't take two businesses that are side by side or in the same plaza and valuate them by what the previous business sold for. You can't do it that way. So you have to approach it really differently when you're evaluating a property, right? But sometimes business real estate agents and brokers don't realize the differences because they don't get that many requests for it. Like I say, I'm trying to encourage you guys to get out there and try different parts of business. Even a lot of our residential clients, so many people own their own businesses. You have to let them know that you do commercial as well. Yeah, do you have any business needs for me as well? It'll be a nice little source of income for you guys if you learn how to do it, because every one of our clients is going to have some kind of business need, whether it's leasing a business space, purchasing, selling their business, or whatever. So a business owner who owns the property will want to either close down the business and sell its real estate, or both at the end of the day. So we have to realize one thing: when we're talking sale of business, it's usually a different entity from the property, especially if our client owns it, right? And we'll talk about what makes a business strong in a leased premises, right, in a little bit. We're often tempted to list them both together, but we have to be really careful. Like I say, if our client owns, say, an industrial condo unit, or they own the freestanding building that they're in, you might not want to sell both the business and the property together, because for a couple different reasons. There are a lot of people who can't afford the whole building. That's why a lot of businesses run in a leased premises. They can write more off if they're leasing a premises rather than owning it. But when you do that, you can evaluate the business properly, and it gets a little confusing if you put the two together with property, right? Very different contractual agreements are necessary to transfer business assets. They aren't like real property because they contain guarantees of volume, existing client customer base demographics. These can't be addressed in a standard commercial real estate purchase document. So you'll see, I'm going to show some examples of a couple of deals that I actually wrote up, and we're going to see some of the clauses that go into it. They're not your standard clauses that you see every day in your agreement of purchase and sales. They're really different, and you have to really look at the different parts of the business to find out what you have to be listing, right? You have to be aware. Okay. The valuation parameters are different as well. A working business will have goodwill considerations in addition to existing contractual and possibly supplier agreements. So goodwill being like, this is my customer base. I have about 150 customers that come in here a day, and I generally service this neighborhood, right? So those are kind of goodwill things. They aren't really tangible things that you can show them, like, this is my supplier contract, or this is my financial statement. So you have to take those things into consideration as well. Profit and loss cash flow. Real estate professionals, particularly those in commercial niche, have the knowledge and expertise to analyze rental income and expenses, presenting them to clients for decision-making purposes. But they can fall short when they're analyzing another type of business from a financial perspective. There's a lot under the surface, and examination of profit and loss and balance sheet doesn't begin to get at the true facts. So profit and loss of a business is often very different from cash flow, okay? Any good business broker will require cash flow analysis as one of the most important financial documents. Adjustments to the value of the business are made based on items in the cash flow, including detailed spreadsheets of all the income, detailed listing of all the expenses, what expenses are actually going to benefit the owner, an adjustment back to income for those owner benefit expenses that'll go away, in addition to expenses for owner benefit costs that require the new buyer to increase expenses, such as that owner managed and the business and buyer will have to hire a manager. So there's so many things to take into consideration. But I'm going to go over some things that you ask your client when you're going to list a business, right? So when you go to list a business with somebody, there's a whole bunch of things that we say. So normally we're always trying to sense motivation. Like I say, I talk about sensing motivation with our residential clients. Like, why do you want to sell? Why do you have to sell? When do you have to be at your next place of residence, right? This is more important when you're selling a business because the purchaser is going to ask you these questions for sure. Because a lot of times they think, oh, this person is selling the business because the business is in trouble or the business isn't making enough money, right? Not enough profit is happening in this business. So you have to ask them, how much did you purchase the business for? Well, I didn't purchase the business, I grew the business. Or I purchased it, a few years ago for $80,000. Take that into consideration, right? You want to ask your clients how long their lease is if they're in the leased premises. So most of the time when you're looking at sale of business in the system, you'll see it's sale of business without property, right? So that would be in a leased premises. The strength of the lease is super important, okay? So say for instance, at Markham and Vermorton right now, I noticed that a new place just went up there maybe about a year ago. And I'm thinking, well, isn't that funny? Because they've just opened a business in there. And I know that this plaza is going to be torn down, right? So you have to be really mindful for your clients and ask these situations, right? So what is the strength of the lease? Okay, I have 3 years left in the lease and a right to renew another 5 after this. Perfect. Then I know my client has minimum another 8 years of life left in their business. Because who wants to just get settled in and turn around and realize that in a year the plaza is being torn down or the landlord's not going to renew the lease because they don't want 2 restaurants or 2 convenience stores in the plaza anymore. They want more of a varied demographic in the plaza, right? So you have to ask, how long is the lease term and what is the right of renewal for that lease term, right? You want to find out if there's any restrictions in place for the purchaser, okay? So very often when you go and you're listing a business, say for instance, it's a convenience store, you have to take certain things into consideration and ask your client lots of questions. What kind of contracts are in place that might need my client to be approved for? So just because I turn around and I purchase your convenience store, it doesn't mean that the lotto will necessarily approve me because you need, just like RICO licenses, to submit your criminal checks, right? Same as if you're purchasing, for instance, a restaurant or a business that's LLBO. In order to have a liquor license, you would need to submit that criminal record check or whatever the case may be. So a lot of times you have to take into consideration these clauses you're putting into your purchase agreement for your client, or even if you're the listing salesperson, you have to educate because that co-op agent coming might also not be familiar with doing a business. You have to educate them that no, there's an approval that needs to go through for the lotto. There's an approval that needs to go through for the liquor license. Perhaps they're buying a franchise, for instance. Say we're buying a Subway or a Tim Hortons. A lot of times these franchises are really sticky on who purchases the business because they have a certain way that they like to run business. So I know Timmy's is really hard unless you have a lot of experience or you've owned a Timmy's before. It's hard to get a Timmy's franchise, right? So just because your client has the money to turn around and purchase this business, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get it at the end of the day, right? If your client does own the building that they're in, you want to find out what the mortgage is, right? Because that's going to be part of what the next person has to, I guess, buy out or find out, for the, they have to pay, as part of their expenses for the business, right? Another thing you have to think of is, does this business have stock, right? So you want to ask your client, if you're sitting there in their automotive shop, there could be easily $100,000 to $200,000 of stock sitting in a lot of these automotive places because they have, tires and car parts and everything sitting around. Even something like a convenience store can have quite a bit of stock. So you have to consider that in the valuation of the business when you're selling it. And you want to itemize that very carefully for everybody. You want to say, okay, this is the value of the business because we have this kind of clientele. And usually they're taking the profit of the business, the net profit after all the expenses, and they're multiplying that. In different businesses, I've seen anything from 1.5 to 3 times the net value. Okay, so you kind of also have to poke around and see, for instance, if you were to sell a brokerage right now, it's usually 3 times the net value. Okay, so you want to poke around and see what kind of business am I selling right now? Okay, I noticed that this convenience store sold for this much. And I think, you know, it's a good idea to call the listing agent too, if you want to find out a little bit better and you're not familiar with it. And what they did was 2.5 times the net value. So that's kind of what it is for the area. So you're going to take that into consideration as well. But then on top of that, if there's $100,000 or $150,000 worth of stock, you're going to add that to the value. So don't forget that, because if not, as the listing agent, you're shortchanging your client. So you want to look at the profits, the strength of the lease, and anything like with stock and stuff. And you want to do an itemized list. So hopefully your client has an inventory list that you can easily access. If not, you have to ask them to create one. So I've had different businesses where I don't know anything about it. And because if they tell me, oh, okay, you can come and itemize it, I go, no, you have to tell me. For once I was listing an automotive business and there was all these hoists and, you know, all this equipment, like, you know, the air pumps and the guns to put the tires on the thing. You have to educate yourself about what business you're doing, even if it's something that you're completely not knowledgeable about. Okay. You have to consider zoning for your client. So if a medical office shuts down in this plaza and they absolutely adore this space, but they want to go in and use it as a restaurant, if the zoning's not there, you have to, as the purchaser for your client, consider what the zoning is properly for that business. So it's a quick call to the city. A lot of times you can call the city in whatever area the business is that you're either listing or selling. You'll do a good service to your buyer agents if you do it as a listing agent. A lot of listing agents, you know, they don't know or they don't put it up properly. But even if they have it listed in the listing, you have to be very careful. Okay. So if I listed an automotive, I listed a couple automotives out in the West End, right? And I learned very quickly that it's not just one zoning, right? So for instance, what I was listing was simply a repair shop, right? It was very different from the other one I had listed because the zoning was completely different, even though they're both automotive, because the other automotive shop was doing paint and auto body, right? Another one was repairing the air conditioners and stuff like that. Because of the environmental on that, you'll find very often that even if your client says, hey, I want to open up an automotive repair shop, but I work on transmissions, they won't allow it in just a regular automotive zoned area. So you have to be really careful and you have to do your due diligence. So the easiest thing you can do is call the city and say, this is the address, 123 Main Street. I'm a real estate agent. I'm trying to purchase this business for my client. I want to make sure they can run what they do, and make sure you educate yourself on what your clients are doing. Because if they just say automotive repair and you put them in the shop that I sold on Wilson, they wouldn't be able to work on their transmission because it wasn't zoned for that environmentally, right? They need a specific specifically zoned thing to work on that, to have the transmission or the paint and automotive or the paint and auto body, sorry. Okay, you have to get your clients to get their financials together, which is a biggie, right? You want to ask them to get their taxes, their notices of assessment from the last 2 years of the business, whatever the financials were, okay? As the listing agent, you want to be careful. You're not just handing this out. It's not like a status certificate where you're just going to give it to everybody because everybody needs to know. And if somebody puts an offer in on it, usually you'll find that a lot of businesses don't want to give you the financial information unless you actually have an offer in on the property. As a listing agent, you can do that, but you can also do a non-disclosure agreement, right? So I have one here that I just used quickly. It's just a quick non-disclosure agreement. So this is only for interested parties. Have you shown the property? Have you expressed interest? Has your agent called me many times asking different things? Do I think that there's a really interested party? If I do, and without an offer in place, but even with an offer in place, you should always make them sign it. You should get a non-disclosure agreement signed. Or if you're asked to sign one as a buyer agent, it's okay. If you've never seen one before, basically they just say, we, in consideration for access to information submitted to me as pertaining to this transaction, will keep all information provided relating to the business and our finances, marketing plans, discussions, processes under development in strict confidence. So they want to know that you're not going and blabbing to everybody else about what's happening with the business. Though there's a reason why in commercial you don't see for sale signs everywhere in front of businesses, because of a few things. They don't really want the public to realize a business is changing hands and changing management until it's done. And maybe the management puts, some renovations in it and they put under new management. But a lot of times businesses change hands and you'll never know, right? Because they're worried about their clientele base. Because what happens is when people say, oh, for sale, automatically people are thinking something's wrong with the business, right? So they don't very often make it public information or try to really advertise it that well. That's why commercial is sometimes hard to find for your clients. And a lot of it happens exclusively. A lot of it doesn't even hit MLS, right? And again, disclose this information solely to individuals that have signed a non-disclosure agreement with or who have expressed approval from the seller, either verbal or written, to receive this information. So if I have a lawyer that I want to share this information with, he might also have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, or have at least verbal consent from the seller saying, yeah, no, it's okay, you share it with your lawyer. Or if I have other business partners in the corporation or something that I have to share this information with, they'll all have to sign non-disclosure agreements, because this business is giving out their actual financial information and they don't want it really be public knowledge, right? A quick side note too, a business that is failing is not necessarily a bad thing. You don't take it as a bad listing, right? So you definitely might have an easier time selling something because you just say, oh, this person has ran this business for 40 years and they're just thinking of retiring, or there's no one to take over the business, or they're moving out of the country, or I had a client who just had a bad back and he couldn't do the restaurant business anymore, right? You'll have those different reasons, but a failing business isn't necessarily a bad thing to sell at the end of the day, because sometimes people have just tried something that they're not good at, but they've put the money in, the stock is there. So for instance, I've tried to open up a convenience store. I've never run a convenience store before. And now I have this business that I just can't get up and running, and I'm not very good at it. But Mary has run 10 convenience stores before, and she's opening up chains everywhere. She's going to come and scoop this up because she's going to see I've got a good space and a good location with a good lease renewal on it, and half the stock is there that I need. This is a really easy business for her to get up and running. So it's not like when we get, it's just like, flip properties. They're golden opportunities for people who are good at renovating. Businesses that are failing aren't necessarily a bad thing. You might not want to advertise it as a failing business in your MLS listing, but it's just a different niche that you have to go and attack. So you have to think of it that way too. Because I know a lot of people have said to me, oh, this guy, his business, it's not doing good and I don't want to take the listing. I'm like, are you kidding me? There's a million people who could take that restaurant and get it up and running. It'll be fine, right? What else did I want to just talk about? Oh, okay. You want to take into consideration the area that's happening. So for instance, right now, there's a lot of businesses that are suffering along Eglinton, because that Eglinton line going in, it's a lot of traffic. Everybody's avoiding that Eglinton area right now, right? So unless they have a really strong customer base that's purposely going there, a lot of the new businesses in that area are struggling. If you look on MLS, or if you're in any commercial circles where people are selling exclusively, a lot of businesses are there, right? And they're suffering a little bit. So you want to be prepared for, to know this. So if your client was purchasing a business on Eglinton before any of this started, you want to educate yourself on something major like that that's going to happen. So you have to tell your client, you know what, there's going to be a few years worth of road work coming up here in the near future. You definitely wanted to consider being a new business in the area, not a well-established business. Are you strong enough as a business owner? You're sure you want to put your business here when we know that the traffic is going to be compromised? A lot of people are going to be avoiding Eglinton for the next 2 years. So you want to educate your client on that. Equipment is another huge thing. It's like the chattels and fixtures in our residential contracts. We want to ask them, a lot of these restaurants, for instance, have sprinkler systems and fryers and all of these like fridges and stuff that are worth a lot of money. Those are also added to the value, not just stock. So you want to get an itemized list of all the chattels and fixtures that your clients have purchased and put in there. You want to find out whether there's any liens or encumbrances on them. Like, are they on rental contract or are they owned outright? Because that'll also say what the value of them is according to the contract. You're going to ask them that as well. Does anybody have any questions so far? I know it's a lot. If you've never done if you've never done any commercial or never done any business before, sometimes it can seem really overwhelming, but I wanted to take it and throw it all at you guys. So when you hear it from your clients, it's not overwhelming, because it's going to not be the first time that you hear it, right? You're going to be like, oh, I kind of remember what to do. Okay, he wants to sell a convenience store. Okay, let me ask him about his stock or about his lease. And if you forget, make yourself a nice checklist or give me a call, right? And say, how do I prepare for this? Because like I say, everything is different, from gas stations to restaurants to convenience stores. Every single transaction is so, so different. Sorry, did you have a question?
Sorry, yeah. It's a convenience store. They have to get check. No, criminal check.
So if the convenience store has lotto, the OLG requires an application. You have to be approved by OLG. So you can't just say, I want to sell lotto. OLG has to give you a license to sell lotto. And in order to get that, you have to give a criminal check, just like we do our RICO to hold our real estate license, right? So if your client is purchasing this, you have to educate them on stuff like this. Same with a liquor license in restaurants. You need to provide a criminal check for that as well. And certain suppliers need approval, right? So certain brand names don't necessarily want to sell in different stores. That's why, I know my teens, they always go to this one gas station because it has this very specific kind of popular drink that everybody's drinking right now, right? And I'm thinking to myself, why doesn't every store sell this? Because every supplier doesn't give the right to everyone to sell, right? So unless you're a good chain or you have some kind of clout or you fill out their application and get approved, even certain brands you can't sell, right? If you buy a gas station with a Tim Hortons in it, you know what I mean? They have to approve you, right? As a location for them going forward.
If they have already have the license, they can transfer other people, no?
No, because it's about liability. So it's about each individual person. That's why even if I own a convenience store with a lotto and you're purchasing it off of me, you have to get approved completely separate from me with your lotto license, basically your OLG license. Yeah. So that's okay. Go on.
It means that you mentioned that another 2 years they will contract again.
Oh, I don't know. I just sort of threw out a timeline there. I'm not sure how long they're gonna. I'm not sure what the finishing date on it is. I tell you, I sold a condo at 330 McCowan like maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and he was like, "Oh, the Eglantons, the line's coming soon. It's coming soon," and they didn't start construction till how long ago, So because he was like, "Oh, I think I can totally get more for my condo," and I'm like, "I don't think they're gonna start construction anytime soon." Hi, Sridharan, you got a question for me?
Yeah. So what is for example, for leasing, we know that residential lease, they have to take the content liability insurance, right? Is it the same like for commercial lease as well?
Yeah, most landlords will require absolutely that you have insurance for your business because they don't want to be, covering all your contents. And you got to think in a leased property for a commercial business, there's a lot more at stake. It's not just couches and TVs we're talking about. Like I said, they could be $200,000 worth of stock sitting in the place. And then you got to consider maybe the POS systems that are on lease from the POS company. And there might be huge chattels, thousands of dollars worth of hoists and automotive equipment they put into the property. So 100% for sure that landlord is going to make sure that you qualify, that you carry insurance for your contents and, probably a good amount of liability as well, right? But every landlord's different for what they require. The other thing I wanted to mention too is we didn't talk about, that's why I said qualify. I was thinking, oops, I forgot to talk about it. You have to make sure that there's no approval from the landlord. So just like we do credit checks for residential, landlords are doing credit checks for your business. And sometimes landlords won't approve you on the strength of your business. So I've asked you, okay, you've got 3 years left on your lease and a 5-year lease renewal, but landlord needs to approve you. Okay, I'm a brand new business. I've never opened up a lighting shop before, but I think I'm going to try it in the storefront. Landlords do not like dark space in their plazas, in their buildings. Dark space meaning vacant units. They don't want that, right? Because it really brings down their cap rate, first of all. And most commercial people who own commercial buildings are investors. They like to keep that cap rate up, right? But they also, especially for retail, don't like dark space because it looks bad to the public. when they have a plaza and 1 or 2 stores are vacant, right? It makes it look run down, right? So they will choose your business based on the strength of your business. So if I come and I say, oh, you know, I've been running this property management for years at home, and I think I'm going to open myself up an office space now, and here's my bank financials, I've been open 5 years, and here's my credit, and you know, all of that, you'll probably get approved. I find it's a harder time for newer businesses, and unless they have a lot of blank space or they're desperate like landlord, which doesn't mean to say if your client wants to try a new business, it's a bad thing, but just be aware that they might get a personal check done. They might get a personal credit check done, and personal references then, just because their business is new and up and running and doesn't have a history yet, right? Sorry, did you have your hand up again, Sudaran?
Sorry?
Did you have your hand up again? Sorry, or did I just not take it down?
No, you didn't take it down yet.
Okay, no worries, no worries. Okay, so let me just go back to share my screen here a little bit. I'll open these up. So I just saved Schedule A from a couple of my offers that I've done. I wanted to show you guys the paperwork as well. So we'll see how much we get through. But this is sort of what it looks like. It's a lot, generally it's a lot longer than what you get for, this one's actually only 3 pages. My other one's 4 pages, I'm gonna show you. Usually you'll find that it's very common to put a deposit down on the offer, but then you'll have a much larger further deposit coming. Because obviously for sale of business, we can't get mortgages on. It's not a tangible thing. The bank isn't going to mortgage it. So our client is going to have to purchase this outright if it's just the business and there's no actual land or building involved, right? You'll find there's a deposit to hold the agreement. And then there's a whole bunch of conditions we were talking about, like lottery, liquor, you know, depending on what has to be done for this particular business. So very often you'll see a much larger deposit being put down after these conditions are lifted. So you see this one says here, the purchaser shall pay a second deposit in the amount of $200,000. And these are actual deals that I worked on to be completed in this agreement and credited towards the purchase price on completion. But this has a 2-day, no later than 2 business days upon removal of all the purchaser's conditions. So, you know, maybe lottery took, and commercial, you have to have patience for it, takes time. Maybe the lotto took 3 or 4 weeks to come back, but the liquor license is taking longer. It took 6 weeks. And then once everything's been lifted, this is saying 2 days after that, I'm going to bring in the $200,000 further deposit for the client, for the seller. Let me just let someone enter here. There's too many things open always on these screens here when I'm doing this. Okay. We see that it says here, I was just trying to find here, well, specifically so you can see the wording. They're asking for a survey. This one was saying release of any relevant information concerning the property, the purchaser or its solicitors by government or authorities having jurisdiction over property. No inspections by governmental authorities will be requested. So you, oh, how did I lose that there? Sorry, let me just stop the share in case they lost it there. I'll share again. So yeah, you'll find there's different things. Oh, environmental reports are another big one. In order to approve my business, I might need to prove that there's no environmental issues with the property. You'll find the sellers usually provide the first one because it's not that expensive. If you're required to do environmental 2 or 3, which get a little more in depth, it can get pretty expensive depending on, especially if you're purchasing things like gas stations, right? If you're taking over that franchise, they want to make sure that the environmental is good on the previous gas station, unless it was their franchise already, right? And they have some environmental information on that. You just have to think to ask all these questions. Like I say, if you are totally lost and you're in the middle of a deal and you say, okay, I know completely nothing about gas stations, can you help me? We can sit together and brainstorm what exactly we think you need to ask and what we think you need to do for your due diligence for your client, right? I'll show you one here. I think the other one I had saved here was for a convenience store, right? So let me say Schedule A. You can see that there's lotto clauses in here. I'm just trying to find it for you here so you can get a look at it. Books and records, they're reviewing books and records, tangible assets, will be there on closing. It says about stock in here because I had to consider stock for the convenience store. Lottery. So here you go, lottery license condition. The agreement is conditional for a period, the lottery conditional period of 15 days after the execution date upon the seller obtaining at its own expense the written consent of Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation or any other appropriate government authority, the licensing authority, and to the assignment of the lottery license to the buyer or authorization that the buyer will be entitled to sell lottery tickets at the premises following the closing. The seller shall use at its best efforts to satisfy the lottery license condition. So also they'll probably ask questions of the current owner and what their sales are, and they'll have stats on them as well. So they have to cooperate. The buyer shall promptly upon receipt of the seller's written request provide to the licensing authority any information regarding the buyer that the licensing authority requests. So like I say, they're definitely going to require the criminal check, but they require a whole application that you have to fill out. They also want to know your business history and if it's, doing a franchise, where they're selling their lottery tickets, right? We all know that it's big. It's big for clients. Like if they were to purchase something and they don't get their lotto license or their liquor license, it might also hurt their business. So you can't put them in and say, oh, it's okay. If you don't get approved, because it's rare you walk into a convenience store without that lotto license, right? It's definitely something that's big in their business. Does anybody have any questions before I go over just some paperwork to show you guys kind of what the commercial paperwork looks like? I don't know if you guys have looked at anything on web forms there. There's a couple of different things I wanted to point out.
If you get the OLG license,
yeah.
First you enter the batch ticket, certain amount per week, per month, then show them that I did that. After they.
Oh, good to know. That's something I didn't know. See, this is why I like sharing. That's very good. I didn't know that. I guess we don't have a history. Yeah. The scratch tickets. Good to know. Good to know. I didn't know that. I guess mostly I've dealt with transfers where the purchaser has to be approved, but not like a brand new store that's never sold before. Oh, yeah? Oh, no. See? Yeah. And this was a client of yours?
No, we own the.
Oh, and the previous people they wouldn't give.
We wanted to give it.
Yeah.
And the OLG didn't give it to the new buyer.
Oh.
We ended up losing the business anyway. But
yeah.
It could have settled.
Yeah.
The OLG said, no, we have a next door. We don't want to continue anymore.
Oh, because it's too close together. But I've seen two convenience stores in the same plaza. Oh, okay, okay. Interesting, good to know.
Even the Tim Hortons, even you have $1 million, $2 million, doesn't matter. You have 2 years experience, you have to work.
This is what I'm saying. I said to you, exactly. Tim Hortons is a big, huge one, but that's why I mentioned it, because it doesn't matter if you can buy, if you have enough money in your pocket to buy 3 Tim Hortons. If you don't have any experience, they're not going to approve you because they have a certain business reputation and their franchise is hard. Their approval is hard. I know, I've heard that before, for sure.
Lots of money and they say, I don't get it.
Yeah, yeah. No, but this is why it's so good we commiserate. Like just because I'm training on it, commercial and sale of business stuff is so difficult, and it's so, no, I shouldn't say difficult. It's not difficult. You have to educate yourself on so many different aspects and so many different fields that you can't say you're an expert, because you're going to come across 100%. You're going to come across something that you've never dealt with before, right? I just had someone in the office ask me about selling a slaughterhouse, right? And I was like, I don't know. I've never sold a slaughterhouse before. I've never purchased a slaughterhouse before. Like, you know, I don't know, but let's try and figure it out, right? We tried to like Google and figure out what he would need, right? So
how we can find the slaughterhouse in the MLS?
How can you find?
I cannot find it. I'm looking for one.
For what?
The slaughterhouse.
Oh, are you looking for one? Okay. So I'll show you what I did. Okay. It's actually, you know what? We'll look at the paperwork real quick, and then I'm gonna, I'll go in the system and I want to show you guys about searching for commercial. Commercial is really tricky. Put less in your results here. Actually, I'll just go to it now. We'll just go and I'll show you now. I find when you're looking for commercial things and specific things for your clients, hopefully it hasn't logged me out yet. I was logging at the beginning. Okay. The more you put in, the less you're going to find. So playing around with it so much, I just found a little trick that works the best for me. So for instance, I'm going to look for commercial sale here. Okay. And I'm just going to pick everywhere because I want my results to come up. I want something to come up, right? So over here, a lot of times people would pick, okay, you know, I specifically need, let's see if they have a slaughterhouse here. Probably not. I think it's under, what's the proper term for it again? But anyways, okay, say I want an amusement park. Here we go. I click amusement. 0. It's going to bring me up 0. I just picked everywhere in MLS and nothing came up and I'm frustrated now. I can't find anything for my client. The less you put in here, the more happens with, hold on, someone's just chatting here. Thank you. I forgot it. Thank you, Sridharian, but it's still not here. It's still not there as an option. The less you pick in here, the more likely you are to find something because no agent is going to list it and click any of these fields off. That's just what I found out. So my trick for you guys, if you're looking for anything, is to go down here and you're going to add a field and you're going to see how they're marketing it for the public. So I always add the field remarks for clients. Okay. This is my hot tip of the day. Okay. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say, okay, I want a slaughter. Whoops. I can spell. Slaughterhouse. Nothing comes up. Okay. I want something with livestock in it. Okay. I'm not having luck today. I was having luck the other day. What did I put in? I want something with meat farmers. We're going to make something come up here. Meat. Okay. Why is this coming up? Let's see. I'm just trying to think of different ways that I think that if I had this listing, how would I explain it in the remarks, right? Because nobody picks off the pull down lists for commercial. I really don't think these are any here. Let's see something a little more rural Bradley. Why is it coming up here for meat? Rare opportunity, commercially zoned property has an extensive list of allowable uses. Currently operated as an authentic European meat and deli business, not for sale. Approved meat processing facilities. Okay, I just found a slaughterhouse, right? So there's no drop-down menu that's going to help you find that. But if you're really looking for one, there's here. If you want to remember it, since you're in, it's on Highway 27 here in Willamberry. But you play with it. And if you don't have anything in the client remarks, check the extras, check the brokerage remarks, right? Check these areas, just add them as a field and just type in keywords. If you were the listing agent, how would I'm looking for a retail store, you know, I need to sell automotive, you know, I need to look for a banquet hall for my client, you know, because very often in the client remarks, they'll put in good use for restaurants and, you know, medical offices, and they'll put that in the remarks. This is the only way you're going to find it in commercial on MLS because they don't make it a required field to use the pull down menu, right? So that is where I found my most success looking for listings for my clients. I just start adding the remarks there. So hopefully that helps you. That's my hot tip of the day for that. I'll go back and I'll share the screen real quick before we run out of time here. I just wanted to go over a couple of the paperwork with you guys. Yeah, what's up?
Can you use map? Like, let's say sometimes it's like, you're just not, you know what listing you're looking for, because maybe you drove by and you saw like a sign or something,
Yeah.
commercial listing, right? And you want to find it on MLS, but you just can't find it with all the things or something. So you can also use maps sometimes, like it'll help you.
Yeah.
Just look at the area and see, you know. You can
Absolutely,
figure it out.
absolutely. If you've driven by something and you can't find it,
Yeah.
and if you can't find it, I have had to drive. So I helped a client of mine, he wanted to move stores on Queen Street. And I'm looking and there's 3 others and it's not the one he's talking about. So I had to physically drive down to Queen Street because you have to remember a lot of commercial happens exclusively. It doesn't hit MLS, right? So I drove down, I found the number on the sign. I called, you know, it was like a property management company, a leasing company that the landlord was using. And I had to call them to get him the lease on Queen Street because it just wasn't coming up on MLS, right? You have to put a little extra effort in, but the thing is with commercial, which is why I always encourage you guys to try, the rewards can be good. You do your residential every day while things are waiting in the background, mind you. But sometimes you could take 6 months to put a commercial deal together. But I've seen guys in my other office get, you know, $150,000 checks because they worked on something for 6 or 8 months. You know what I mean? They're doing the research. They're calling the city. It's like, it's good. It's good income if you get a little confidence enough to try it, right? Sale of business isn't necessarily your big ticket item, but I thought it was like a nice thing to start with because it does get confusing, but it can be lucrative as well. Okay, so I just put together a couple kits here just to quickly show you guys some paperwork. So if I was listing a business, paperwork looks a little different. So we are working with a realtor, which everybody's seen, but there is a form in there that's specifically geared to commercial clients, working with a commercial realtor. It still has the responsibilities, client and customer, what you know, we owe to our clients or customers to explain to them the different types of representation. It's just differently logoed as a commercial form. We have our identification record, but very often, like I said, our clients have opened a corporation to run their business. You have to fill out the corporation entity identification record, not the regular individual identification. So it'll tell the property address and your name, everything like before, but then it tells you the corporation name, the corporation address, what's the nature of the business, and all the directors on that business. So you know who the signing authorities are to sell your business. Because you also, just like looking on title, you need to know who has signing authority to sell this business. If husband and wife are both on that corporation and neither of them has a single signing authority, you need both signatures. You need both to put up that business to sell on MLS. So you need to know this information when you're selling commercial businesses.
The corporation.
Yeah.
Is one name on it, or the right one, only 24.
That's fine. If they're the director and they have full signing authority, they can sign. Yeah. But if it's like a complete 50-50 partnership and both have to sign for anything to be sold or to do with the business, then you have to make sure you get both signatures. Yeah, before you're putting up on MLS. Same. So that's why this is showing that you did your due diligence and you went in and you saw the name of all the directors in the corporation and who has signing authority. I usually just ask for a copy of the corporation documents or something. Right? Then you go in and you have your listing agreement. Listing agreement is not terribly different, right? It just says, you know, what you're selling, the commission, it looks fairly the same. But in addition to this, we're getting our clients to sign.
How much minimum commission to maximum?
For the commercial, how much commission you have to charge?
Yeah, no, for sure. So this is a good question. You have to look and see what other things you're doing. So, okay, if you're doing commercial lease, it's pretty standard. You get 4% the net on the first year, and then usually 1 or 2% for the balance of years. And they do that as landlords because they want to encourage you to bring a good client. So you're getting your chunk for the first year, but the more years you're signing your client up for, the more money you're getting for that particular transaction.
You have to do
right?
every year?
Leasing you give every year. So 4%, it's not like a half month's rent like residential. So you usually get 4% the net rent of the first year. And then each additional year you put your client, because if you bring a client, I want you to bring me a good client. I don't want them to sign up for 1 or 2 years. Most commercial landlords won't even allow 1 year. They want to see minimum 2 year, right? I want you to bring me a client that signs for 10 years. Because I want to know that the space in my retail unit or my commercial unit, I don't want to worry about it now for the next 10 years because I don't want it to be vacant. So I'm encouraging you to bring me a good client. So I'm giving you 4% the net the first year and 1 or 2% for every year that you sign them up after. So the more years you're signing your client up for, the more money you're making. But as the agent for the tenant, the commercial tenant, you have to be careful. Even though you make more money if you sign them up for 10 years, if they're a brand new business and they're just starting out, it's up to you to negotiate a shorter lease for them. Because should their business, God forbid, not work out or they fail at what they're doing and they can't get the business up and running, you don't want them locked in for 10 years, right? So you have to do your due diligence both ways, right? Don't think, oh my God, if I get them to sign up for 10 years, I make, a couple $1,000s more on this deal, right? You have to be good to your client and like make sure you know what their business is and what their history is with that business, how good they are at running it. Yeah.
So what would be the course of action? Because sometimes maybe I thought they had it in them to do it for 10 years, but stuff happens, COVID happened, like whatever, right?
Mhm.
Like stuff happens. So
Mhm.
then after 5 years, like bankrupt or whatever, right?
Stuff happens.
No, so that would not be the onus would not be on me.
The onus wouldn't be on you. The thing is, you don't want your client just to turn around and be mad at you and say, you signed me up for 5 years now, I'm locked in and the business didn't work and I'm only a year into my thing. So you want to make sure a couple things that your client has a sublet clause in there, because commercial
Like,
leases.
I shouldn't be the reason why the business.
Well, I mean, you can't be you're not going to be there daily running your business with them.
No, I mean, like.
I'm just saying it's the same way we don't put our clients in a house that we know they can't afford, right? Because at the end of the day, they're going to say, well, you didn't direct me. They're not going to use you again as a professional, right? You're looking for your repeat and referral business. You have to be good to your clients, right? So, but yeah, it's definitely not going to be your issue. Yeah, the typical one, because it'll just say you're representing the buyer, I'm representing the seller, and this much commission as per MLS, right? So, and then you just put 4% the net first year, 1%, instead of putting 2.5% plus HST. You put whatever they're offering. For businesses, they might offer flat rates. So say I'm only selling a business for $40,000. I'm running a little mom and pop hot dog shop here in the mall, right? Like it's not worth that much. I'm only selling it for $40,000. You might find a lot of people aren't going to bring me a buyer, because if I offer 10%, what are they going to make off of that? Or it's 10%, 2%. What are they going to make off of that? So they might offer a flat rate, $2,500 or $3,000 for this business, right? You have to use your judgment when it comes to that. Selling a business, it's kind of like a not as straightforward as the leases, the commercial leases. And then of course, commercial property would be the same. But you'll find, if it depends what area you're in with a lot of businesses, commercial usually was 10%, 10% always. So 5% for co-op, and you'd negotiate your half of the 5%. A lot of commercial guys online, if you look, are still following that. You'll see it'll say 5%, right? For the co-op. So it just depends what area you're in. If everybody's offering 2.5 for the entire sale, then you might have to go with the flow of that, right? And negotiate that with your client. It's different every time. If you need a judgment call and you're not sure what to charge for commission, just ask me. We can kind of look in the system and see. So along with loading your listing, I'm just going to go over this quickly before we run out of time. Sale of business, statement on an oath. So this is something you're going to get your clients to sign. So Bascaran, I'm from, Toronto, and you fill out this, and I'm the owner of a business situated at 123 Main Street. I'm the director of 0123 Ontario, Incorporated. Possession of the premises, which is being conducted, business is being conducted, is held by virtue of ownership. So you own the premises, like the standalone building or the commercial industrial condo that you're in, or by virtue of lease. You have to attach the lease terms. You have to know what the lease terms are, like I was saying. Then you can say, the described area sublet, if it's been sublet. Liabilities of the business are comprised of a current day-to-day accounts payable, a bank loan of, right? So if they have taken out a loan to purchase this business, because some people they put business plans together, they get loans from the bank, right? You can declare that, or whatever the mortgage is, and other liabilities. What are the other liabilities? Such books of account of the business are in my company's possession and have been made available to the person wishing to acquire the business. Or no books of account will be made available. That's a tough sale. No, not a lot of people are going to buy it unless they have a good understanding of the business without books being available. You have to have something to show people. All right. And then it just makes them swear, and there's a waiver at the bottom there. So you're going to get your clients to sign that to put it up with your listing. Well, you don't necessarily have to put up your listing, but you can hand it off to any interested parties who inquire. How's everybody doing there online? Has anybody tried selling a business before? I know you said, but that was personal experience, right? So there you go. At least you have like an understanding of it, right? Of what you have to go through and do it. You could probably go and try to list other convenience stores. You know what I mean? If you have any clients interested, or when you're in a convenience store, just ask them, give them your card. Yeah, but I'm just saying it's something that you can be a little more confident about because you've at least been through it, right? Next time you're in a convenience store, buying a lotto ticket or a drink or something, I'd hand my card and say, hey, if you're ever looking to open up another store, you know what I mean? Or if you're looking to sell in the near future, let me know, right? And if they call you, at least you kind of know how to navigate it a little bit. So
what happens if it's a business downstairs, upstairs a residence?
Yeah,
So
mixed use.
3 bedroom, yeah.
Yeah.
So you need a separate
No.
same thing you can put it,
Yeah, because the whole
commercial.
thing is mixed use. It's
Yeah.
considered commercial anyways. Yeah. So you're selling the whole thing. You're gonna be selling the building. It goes as a mixed use. You'll have to give the financials. So the restaurant pays me $1,500 and the brokerage gives $2,300. And then there's a couple apartments upstairs that pay, you know, $1,200 rent each.
How you can charge there, the percentage, 4% or
If you're selling the building, you'd have to look and see what they're doing. They're probably only gonna do the 2.5. Yeah, because that would be a whole like building sale. It would go more like a residential, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but you're selling the building at the end of the day, it's property, so it would probably go more like a 2.5 kind of sale. But you have to make sure that you have all those financials. And the thing is people are going to be calculating the cap rates on these commercial products, right? So you have to have all those readily available. If you don't have those answers, they're not going to be able to calculate their cap rates. They're not going to purchase off of you. You're not going to sell your listing, right? So just make sure you know all the rents and all the lease terms left.
What happens with 4%? Also possible?
If your client wants to, but like I say, it would have to be a little
No,
like,
directly myself, I mean, so no other agent.
oh, if there's no other agent, yeah, for sure, because the total would be 5 years starting. The total would be 5 years starting it. So you're negotiating the listing in a little bit if you're double ending it. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
2-3 months I had one chance also legally done, but he had run the business. So once you want to buy,
Yeah.
So he asked my help, so I will
For sure. We'll see if it's still available. You should go back and try and help them for sure and get the business. And like I say, just don't be nervous. Just come in and we'll navigate through it, even if I've never done it before. Pretty adventurous, right? Like we'll go and we'll figure out how to do it. So there's just so many different types of businesses out there that you can't do it all, right? So, but I remember like, cause I took over my father's business. I guess I was lucky in that sort, but I didn't think it at the time. When I got my license, I got thrown into all this crazy automotive out in the West End. I had no idea what the heck I was doing. I had to like research everything and learn it. And I even had one guy call me one day, this like Italian guy who works out in that area a lot. And he had a lot of the automotive listings and he goes, hey, how'd you get this listing? And I'm like, what do you mean, how'd I get the listing? I got the listing, right? Because he's wondering how, I'm sitting here working through all this crazy automotive. You just have to educate yourself a little bit more. It just takes a little bit more time to go on and say, okay, what do I need to know about this business? What do I need what am I going to get asked from the public in order to sell this business now, right? So hopefully you guys will all tackle some commercial. I'd love to see some commercial deals go through here. It's always exciting for me. Like I say, if you guys get in the habit of doing it, it can be really lucrative, even though you have to work on it for a long time. It can be a good payoff at the end for sure. We'll do other parts of commercial maybe another day, but I thought this was a good fun topic to throw in the midst of we've been doing a lot of listing appointments and CMAs and how to prepare for your listing. So I thought it was a good topic, something fun and different to throw in. Hopefully you guys feel a little more confident to try it now, right? Very good, very good. You guys good online there? Do you have any questions? Everybody good? All right, so this Thursday, we have an exciting topic, take the stress out of the stress test. I'm super excited for this topic. We have 2 guest speakers coming in on Zoom from iConnect Mortgages to talk to us about it. So I'm going to page out the link now. I have it ready to go there and everybody attend it. I think it's going to be a really good topic. I know our clients are freaked out asking us about it. Do we think the market's going to crash and halt and what's happening with the stress test? So hopefully we'll get some questions answered when they come on Thursday. All right. Okay, good. Have a good week, everyone. Thank you.